One echoing slap silenced a ballroom of New York's most dangerous elite. She thought she was putting an arrogant tech billionaire in his place for humiliating an elderly waitress. She had no idea she'd just struck the most ruthless cartel boss on the eastern seaboard and sealed her own fate. The grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria was a symphony of clinking baccarat crystal, hushed, high-stakes conversations, and the faint, lilting strains of a string quartet playing Vivaldi. For the ultra-wealthy of Manhattan, the annual St. Jude's Winter Charity Gala was a place to see and be seen. For Harper Quinn, it was just another grueling 12-hour shift in a pair of blistering black flats. At 26, Harper was the lead catering supervisor for an upscale event company. She was a woman running on fumes and black coffee, working double shifts to keep her younger sister, Lily, enrolled in a specialized physical therapy program after a devastating car accident. Harper had no time for the glitz and glamour surrounding her. Her world was measured in appetizer trays, ice sculptures, and making sure the VIP guests never saw the frantic chaos happening behind the kitchen's swinging doors. That night, the VIP of all VIPs was Damien Croft. To the public, Damien was a ghost-like venture capitalist and real estate magnate. He owned half the commercial waterfront in Brooklyn and held a controlling stake in several international shipping lines. He was striking in a cold, predatory way, tall, with razor-sharp cheekbones, midnight dark hair, and eyes the color of a winter ocean. He stood near the ice sculpture, wearing a bespoke charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Harper's yearly rent. He exuded an aura of absolute power. When he spoke, the men around him leaned in, desperate for his approval. Harper was busy directing the dessert rollout when she heard the shatter of glass. The sound cut through the elegant murmur of the ballroom like a gunshot. Harper turned, her heart dropping into her stomach. A few feet away from Damien Croft stood Martha, a 60-year-old banquet server who had worked at the hotel for 3 decades. Martha was sweet, arthritic, and currently trembling in sheer terror. At her feet lay the shattered remains of 2 champagne flutes. The bubbling vintage Dom Perignon was soaking rapidly into the lapel and trousers of Damien Croft's immaculate suit. "I'm so sorry, sir," Martha gasped, her voice cracking as she immediately dropped to her knees, frantically grabbing a cloth napkin from her apron to dab at his shoes. "Someone bumped my shoulder and the tray tipped. I am so sorry." The men surrounding Damien immediately took a step back, as if anticipating an explosion. But Damien didn't yell. He didn't lose his temper. Instead, he looked down at the elderly woman with a gaze so devoid of human empathy it sent a chill down Harper's spine from across the room. "Get off the floor," Damien said. His voice was quiet, smooth, and laced with absolute venom. "You look pathetic." Martha froze, tears springing to her eyes. "Sir, please, I can pay for the cleaning." "Pay for it," Damien interrupted, a cruel, mocking smile playing on his lips. He glanced at his associates. "This woman thinks she can pay for a $10,000 suit on a minimum wage salary. Tell me, what is your name?" "Martha, sir." "Well, Martha," Damien said, leaning down slightly so only she and the immediate circle could hear, "by tomorrow morning, you won't have that minimum wage salary. You won't have a pension. You won't have a job in this city. I'm going to make sure you spend your retirement begging on a subway platform. Now get out of my sight before I have security throw you out like the garbage you are." A few of his wealthy sycophants chuckled. Martha let out a quiet sob, trying to gather the broken glass with shaking, bleeding fingers. Harper's vision went red. Years of retail smiles, of swallowing her pride, of bowing to the wealthy elites who treated working-class people like disposable commodities. It all boiled over in one blinding rush of adrenaline. Before her brain could catch up to her feet, Harper was crossing the ballroom floor. "Hey!" Harper's voice rang out, sharp and authoritative. Damien slowly stood up straight, his icy blue eyes locking onto Harper as she marched into the circle of millionaires. "Leave her alone," Harper demanded, grabbing Martha gently by the shoulders and pulling the weeping older woman to her feet. "It was an accident. She apologized." Damien stared at Harper as if she were an insect that had just crawled onto his dining table. "And who the hell are you?" "I'm her supervisor," Harper lied smoothly, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. "And you're a grown man throwing a tantrum over a piece of fabric." She made a mistake. There's no need to speak to her like that. The silence in the immediate vicinity was deafening. Even the string quartet seemed to falter. The men around Damien stared at Harper in utter disbelief. No one spoke to Damien Croft like that. No one. Damien tilted his head, his eyes scanning Harper from her cheap black uniform down to her scuffed shoes. "You have exactly 3 seconds to walk away, little girl, before I ruin your life, too." "My life is fine," Harper snapped, stepping between Martha and Damien, shielding the older woman. "But clearly, all your money can't buy you an ounce of basic human decency. You're just a sato that arrogant bully." Damien stepped forward, invading her personal space. He was a full head taller than her, smelling of expensive cedarwood cologne and dangerous intent. "You don't know who you're talking to," he whispered, his voice dark and lethal. "I could crush you with a single phone call." "Do it, then," Harper fired back, refusing to break eye contact. "I prefer to handle trash myself," Damien sneered. He reached out and grabbed Harper by the upper arm, his grip like a steel vice, intending to shove her out of his way. The physical contact triggered a survival instinct Harper didn't even know she possessed. Smack! The sound echoed off the high, frescoed ceilings of the Waldorf Astoria. Harper had swung her right hand with everything she had, her palm connecting solidly with Damien Croft's left cheek. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Someone dropped a plate. The music stopped completely. Harper stood there, her chest heaving, her hand stinging with a fiery heat. She realized with sudden, horrific clarity what she had just done. She had assaulted a billionaire in front of New York's elite. Damien's head was turned to the side from the force of the blow. For 3 agonizing seconds, he didn't move. Then, very slowly, he turned his face back to her. A red handprint was blossoming across his pale, aristocratic skin. 2 massive men in dark suits, his private security, suddenly lunged forward from the shadows, grabbing Harper roughly by both arms. "Let her go," Damien commanded softly. The guards froze, confused, but didn't release her. "I said let her go," Damien repeated, his voice dangerously calm. The guards immediately dropped their hands and stepped back. Damien stepped so close to Harper that she could feel the heat radiating from him. He didn't look angry. That was the terrifying part. His eyes were wide, alert, and burning with a dark, fascinated intensity. He reached up and slowly traced his own jawline where she had struck him. "What is your name?" he asked softly. Harper swallowed hard, her bravado completely evaporating, replaced by a cold, primal fear. "Harper. Harper Quinn." A slow, terrifying smile curved the corners of his mouth. It was a predator's smile. "Harper Quinn, enjoy the rest of your evening." Without another word, Damien Croft turned and walked out of the ballroom, his entourage scrambling to follow him. Harper stood trembling in the center of the room. 10 minutes later, her manager dragged her into the kitchen, screaming at the top of his lungs, and fired her on the spot. But as Harper walked out into the freezing New York night, jobless and terrified, she told herself she had done the right thing. She thought the worst that could happen was being unemployed. She was entirely wrong. By Friday, Harper's life had systematically unraveled. It started with small things. Her final paycheck from the catering company was frozen due to a clerical error. When she applied for 3 different restaurant jobs she was vastly overqualified for, the managers took one look at her name on the application, turned pale, and told her the positions were suddenly filled. Then came the eviction notice. Her landlord, a usually lenient man in his 60s, showed up at her Queens apartment with a terrifyingly blank expression, stating her building had just been bought out by a new holding company, and all month-to-month leases were terminated immediately. Finally, the crushing blow. The physical therapy clinic called. Her sister Lily's account had been flagged. Their credit line was abruptly pulled by the bank, and without immediate out-of-pocket payment, Lily's sessions were cancelled. Sitting at her tiny kitchen table, clutching a final notice from the utility company, Harper finally understood. This wasn't bad luck. This was an assassination of her livelihood. Damien Croft was making good on his threat. He wasn't just crushing her, he was erasing her. A heavy knock at the door startled her. Harper cautiously opened it to find a massive man in a perfectly tailored suit filling the hallway. It was one of the security guards from the gala. "Miss Quinn," the man said, his voice a deep rumble. "My name is Leo. Mr. Croft would like a word." "Tell Mr. Croft he's already done enough," Harper spat, trying to slam the door. Leo simply put a massive, unmovable hand flat against the wood. "It wasn't a request, Miss Quinn, and considering your sister's medical debts were just purchased by a private equity firm managed by my employer, I suggest you come with me." Harper's blood ran cold. He had Lily's debt. With no other choice, she grabbed her coat and followed Leo down to the street, where a sleek black Mercedes Maybach was idling at the curb. The drive into Manhattan was silent and suffocating. They didn't pull up to a corporate skyscraper. Instead, they drove to a heavily guarded private estate hidden behind iron gates in the exclusive enclave of Sutton Place, overlooking the East River. Leo escorted her through a cavernous, dimly lit mansion filled with expensive art and silent, watchful men. They arrived at a set of heavy mahogany double doors. Leo opened them, gesturing for her to step inside. The room was a sprawling library. A fire crackled in a massive marble hearth. Standing by the window, staring out at the rain-slicked river, was Damien Croft. "You're very hard to employ, Miss Quinn," Damien said without turning around. "You're a monster," Harper said, her voice shaking with rage. "You buy my building, you blacklist me from every kitchen in the city, and you buy my sister's medical debt, all because of a slap." Damien finally turned. He walked over to a crystal decanter on his mahogany desk and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Sit down, Harper." "I prefer to stand," he shrugged, picking up his glass. "Suit yourself. But you are operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of who I am. You think I am a fragile billionaire throwing a tantrum. You think I am a venture capitalist." He took a slow sip. "I own the docks in New Jersey. I own the unions in Brooklyn. And I control the flow of 70% of the illicit narcotics moving through the eastern seaboard. The name on the SEC filings is Croft. The name on the streets is Romano." Harper stopped breathing. The room suddenly felt entirely devoid of oxygen. She had grown up in New York. Everyone knew the whispers of the Romano crime syndicate, the ruthless Italian-American mafia family that had violently modernized their operations, replacing street thugs with corporate lawyers and offshore accounts. The boss of the family had been anonymous for years, a ghost the FBI couldn't pin down. Damien Croft wasn't a tech billionaire. He was a mafia don, and she had slapped him across the face in front of 50 people. "Why am I still alive?" she whispered, genuine terror finally gripping her heart. A valid question, Damien mused, leaning against his desk, crossing his ankles. "My underbosses argued heavily for your immediate removal. Slapping the head of the Romano family in public is a death sentence. It shows weakness on my part if I let you live." But he smiled, and it was a terrifying, brilliant thing. "I have a different use for you." Harper backed up a step. "I won't do anything illegal." Damien laughed, a dry, harsh sound. "I don't need you to run guns, Harper. I need a wife." She stared at him, sure she had misheard. "Excuse me, I am currently in the middle of a very delicate, very bloody territory negotiation with the Chicago syndicate," Damien explained, his tone suddenly purely business. "The old world bosses do not respect a man without a family. They think I am too young, too untethered and too unpredictable. They want to arrange a marriage between me and the daughter of a prominent Sicilian boss to control me. If I refuse the marriage, it's war. A war that will cost me millions and likely put a target on my back." "So just say no," Harper argued. "I can't just say no," Damien said, his eyes narrowing. "Unless I am already engaged. And not just to anyone. It has to be someone entirely outside the life. Someone fiercely independent. Someone who would zap a billionaire in public without a second thought to defend a stranger." He walked slowly toward her, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. "Word of what you did at the gala has already spread through my organization. You have fire. You have grit. The narrative writes itself. The ruthless boss tamed by the fiery working-class girl who stood up to him. It is the perfect alibi." "You want me to pretend to be your fiancé to fool the mafia?" Harper asked, her voice incredulous. "You're insane." "I am a pragmatist," Damien corrected softly, stopping just inches from her. "Here is the deal, Harper Quinn. You will move into this house. You will wear my ring. You will attend every dinner, every gala, and every sit-down with me for the next 6 months. You will act deeply in love with me. And you will convince the Chicago syndicate that you are the only woman in the world I listen to. And if I say no?" Damien reached out, his long fingers gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was burning hot against her cold skin. "If you say no, I collect on your sister's medical debt. $240,000, due immediately. When you can't pay it, she is removed from the facility. You will be evicted tomorrow. You will never work in this state again. You will watch everything you love crumble." Tears of helpless rage burned in Harper's eyes. "You are evil." "I am necessary," Damien whispered, his thumb lightly brushing the cheekbone of the woman who had struck him just days prior. "But if you say yes, Lily's debts are erased tonight. I will fully fund her recovery at the best private facility in Switzerland. You will have your own wing of this house. And at the end of 6 months, you walk away with $2 million, tax-free, and your life back." Harper looked into those cold, winter ocean eyes. She thought of Lily, struggling to walk, fighting through the pain every single day. She thought of the eviction notice in her pocket. Damien Croft had built a cage around her so quickly and flawlessly that she hadn't even realized she was trapped until the door locked. 6 months, Harper whispered, her voice trembling. 6 months, Damien confirmed. Do we have a deal, my beautiful fiancé? Harper closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. Yes. Excellent, Damien said, his voice dropping an octave, low and vibrating with a strange, possessive intensity. Then we have work to do, because tomorrow night you are meeting the Chicago bosses, and if they suspect for 1 second that you are faking it, they won't kill me, Harper. They will kill you. The transformation took less than 12 hours. By sunset the next day, Harper was no longer the exhausted catering supervisor from Queens. Wrapped in a backless, blood-red silk gown by Alexander McQueen, her hair styled into sleek, dark waves, she stared at a stranger in the mirror of the estate's master suite. Damien stepped into the room, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored midnight blue suit. He stopped, his cold eyes sweeping over her. For a fraction of a second, the mask of the ruthless Mafia Don slipped, revealing a flash of raw, unfiltered hunger. Then, it was gone. He walked up behind her, holding an open velvet box. Inside rested a flawless, emerald-cut diamond ring that felt heavy enough to sink a ship. My mother's, Damien murmured, sliding the icy platinum band onto her trembling ring finger. His large, warm hands lingered on hers. Remember the rules, Harper. Do not speak unless spoken to. If bullets start flying, you drop to the floor and do not move until Leo comes for you. And above all else, you look at me as if I am the center of your universe. And if they see through me? She whispered, staring at their reflection. They won't, Damien said, his jaw tightening, because you are going to tell them exactly why you slapped me at the Waldorf. An hour later, the armored Maybach pulled up to an underground, private entrance of the Core Club, Manhattan's most exclusive, ultra-discreet sanctuary for the global elite. Security cleared the perimeter before Damien placed a heavy, possessive hand on the small of Harper's back, guiding her into a dimly lit, soundproofed private dining room. Waiting for them at a long mahogany table was Dominic Rossi, the brutal, aging boss of the Chicago syndicate. Flanking him were 4 heavily armed enforcers. Sitting to Rossi's right was Lorenzo, Damien's own ambitious, slick-haired underboss, who Harper immediately sensed held nothing but thinly veiled contempt for Damien. "Damien," Rossi rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. He didn't stand. His dark eyes instantly zeroed in on Harper. "And this must be the famous Wildcat. I'll admit, when Lorenzo told me you were tying yourself down to a working-class waitress, I thought you'd finally lost your mind. Harper is my fiancé, Dominic," Damien said smoothly, pulling out a chair for her before taking his own seat. He kept one hand resting intimately on her bare knee beneath the table. "And she is much more than a waitress." Rossi leaned forward, swirling his bourbon. "Is she? Word on the street is she slapped you across the face in front of half of Wall Street. A real boss wouldn't let a woman disrespect him in public. It makes you look weak, Romano. It makes me question your grip on your own territory." The room went dead silent. Lorenzo smirked into his glass. The tension was suffocating. Damien's hand tightened on Harper's knee, a silent warning. But Harper remembered the terrified look on Martha the waitress's face, and she remembered that she was fighting for her sister's life. Harper didn't cower. She picked up her wine glass, took a slow, deliberate sip, and locked eyes with the Chicago boss. "He wasn't disrespected, Mr. Rossi," Harper said, her voice dripping with the icy confidence of a woman born to money, channeling every terrible, entitled socialite she had ever served. He was punished. Rossi blinked, caught completely off guard. Punished? Damien has a terrible habit of bringing his work home, Harper lied smoothly, leaning into Damien's shoulder, tracing the lapel of his suit with a perfectly manicured nail. He missed our anniversary dinner because he was too busy dealing with shipping logistics. When I saw him at the gala, parading around like he hadn't left me waiting for 3 hours, I lost my temper. The waitress dropping the glass was just an excuse. I hit him because he belonged to me that night, and he forgot it. She turned her face up to Damien, her eyes blazing with a faux, passionate fury. "Isn't that right, darling?" Damien stared down at her, genuine shock flickering in his eyes before he let out a low, dark chuckle. He reached up, his fingers gripping her chin, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to show ownership. "I have a demanding woman, Dominic," Damien said, his voice dropping to a gravelly purr as he held Harper's gaze. "She keeps me sharp, and trust me, I prefer a queen who fights back over a submissive little girl from Sicily." Rossi burst into a booming, roaring laugh, slamming his hand on the table. The tension in the room snapped. "I like her. By God, Romano, she's got iron in her veins." "Fine. You have your family. We hold the borders where they are. The territory is yours." Under the table, Damien's thumb stroked the sensitive skin of her thigh. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a caress. Harper's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was acting, but the heat flooding her veins felt terrifyingly real. 3 months bled into 4, and the lines of their iron-clad contract vanished into thin air. Harper moved through Damien's dangerous underworld like a phantom in red silk. At underground casinos and tense sit-downs, she was his silent, watchful queen. In the quiet, fire-lit hours at the Sutton Place estate, they were simply a man and a woman. Damien learned Harper took her coffee black, and she learned he had inherited a bloody empire at 22. His touches, once purely performative, became lingering and fiercely possessive. But a kingdom built on violence is never truly at peace. The betrayal came on a freezing November midnight. Damien and Harper were inspecting a half-finished luxury penthouse in Brooklyn, accompanied only by Leo and his underboss, Lorenzo. The eerie silence tipped them off first. Lorenzo stepped backward toward the freight elevator, drawing a suppressed glock from his cashmere coat. "Sorry, boss. Rossi offered me your chair in exchange for the eastern seaboard." Before Damien could draw his weapon, the floor-to-ceiling windows shattered. Automatic gunfire from an adjacent rooftop chewed through the drywall. "Down!" Damien roared, tackling Harper to the concrete. He covered her entirely with his massive frame as bullets rained around them. Leo returned fire instantly, pinning Lorenzo behind a concrete pillar. Damien dragged Harper behind a structural steel beam. Blood poured from a grazing shot on his left shoulder. His cold, ruthless mask was completely gone, replaced by frantic, raw terror. "Leo will cover you," Damien demanded, gripping her face over the deafening roar of gunfire. "Run to the elevator. A jet is waiting at Teterboro to take you to Lily. You never look back, understand?" "No!" Harper screamed, grabbing his lapels. "I'm not leaving you here to die!" "The contract is done, Harper. I'm letting you go." "To hell with the contract," she cried, tears cutting through the concrete dust on her cheeks. "I'm not leaving my husband." The word struck Damien harder than a bullet. The desperate man vanished. The lethal street king returned. He slapped a fresh magazine into his weapon. Leo, on 3. Damien vaulted the steel beam, laying down relentless suppressive fire while Leo flanked their traitor. In 60 agonizing seconds, the rooftop snipers were silenced, and Lorenzo lay dead on the floor. The penthouse fell dead silent. Damien dropped to his knees, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Harper scrambled across the debris, throwing her arms around his neck, sobbing violently as he crushed her fiercely against his chest. 2 months later, the contract expired, but neither walked away. On a sun-drenched terrace on the Amalfi Coast, Harper stood in a white silk dress, watching her sister Lily walk completely unassisted. Damien stepped up behind Harper, wrapping his arms around her waist. The Chicago syndicate was crushed. The Romano family was untouchable. "I have a confession," Damien murmured against her neck. "I bought that catering company the morning after you slapped me." Harper turned, raising an eyebrow. "You got me fired on purpose? I couldn't have my queen serving appetizers." Harper laughed, gently slapping his cheek, a loving echo of the night that changed their lives. "You are a monster, Damien Romano." "I know," he whispered, pulling her into a breathtaking, soul-consuming kiss. "But I'm your monster. Did you love this thrilling journey of danger, fake engagements, and an unexpected romance that broke all the rules? If Harper's bravery and Damien's fiercely protective love kept you on the edge of your seat, give this video a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that share button to send this story to your fellow romance lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-pounding, dramatic mafia love stories every single week.